Hi, you'll have to excuse my voice a little bit. I'm getting over the flu and strep throat right now simultaneously. So I'm going to do my best to try to speak through this presentation. So my project that I did was studying the effects of social media on the perception of and attitude towards gun violence in the United States. So just a little background of my topic. And the purpose of doing this study was because of the increased social media use that we were experiencing as a society, as well as that increased portrayal of gun violence on that same social media. We don't really know what the effects are um, on society as a whole, on how gun control should be altered in the future, or how we're bringing things such as race into the picture when thinking about that gun violence and it being portrayed on social media. So, when doing my study, I had a few hypotheses um, to consider when I was asking my questions in my survey. So, the first one was that the increasing portrayal of gun violence on social media is making the general population more likely to buy a gun. The second was that the portrayal of gun violence on social media is skewing the general population's perceptions of the racial makeup of shooters. And the third was that the portrayal of gun violence on social media is weakening the argument for gun control in the United States. Excuse me. For my sample and method, I did have a sample size of 57 participants in the survey. 39 were females and 18 were males. Most of them were college students, aging or ranging in age from 20 to 47. Most live in Texas, while I did have some participants in Oklahoma, California, Florida, Tennessee, Utah, and New Mexico. I gave the survey out via Google Forms because that was just the easiest option for me. I shared it on my social media and I texted it out to certain people that I didn't have on social media. And then some of my friends shared it as well with people they knew just to get some more participants in that. So I didn't know everybody that participated in that survey. Going over the results real quick. The thing I really do like about Google Forms is that it just makes all the responses so clear for you with the visuals. So right here you'll see that I found that this was a good sample because most of them do get all of their news from social media. As you can see, almost 92% did, which is pretty good. So I felt that they were great at answering the following questions. Um, Now, on here, about 56% of the 57 participants, um, them or themselves, have a gun at home, while the other 44% do not. Um, and then the next question I asked was regarding how gun violence on social media made them feel. So my options were more likely to keep a gun that they own currently or to get one, more likely to get rid of a gun that they own currently or continue without one, or neutral. Now, this one was expected. The answer here was expected, but it was still surprising at how big of a margin that people said they were more likely to keep a gun or want to get a gun after seeing all the gun violence. Um, as you can see, it's 87%, 87.5% of people think that owning a gun is necessary after seeing all this violence. I did ask a follow up question for this, and most of the participants who chose this answer said that they wanted to get a gun or keep their gun for the safety and security of themselves or their family members. The next question was, excuse me, the next question I had was how posts on social media made them feel about gun rights and control. So this one was a little more spread out and not as clear as the previous question, but it still gave a clear majority to where most people do think that we should increase gun control in the United States. This one was a little surprising because You would think since with the last question of whether or not people would want to go buy a gun, most of those same people who wish to keep their gun or go buy a gun actually chose to um, tighten up gun control, which was a little surprising to me. And there are actually quite a few people, almost 18%, who thinks there shouldn't be any guns allowed in the United States at all, other than like military or police. Next, I asked how people felt about the racial groups being portrayed. So the reason for this was just to see how, um, or was to prove that hypothesis that I showed you earlier about whether or not the portrayal and the framing of what comes up on the social media, if how that affects people. So as you can see here, most people chose black males as well as Middle Eastern or Hispanic males, with white males only being a little under 20% here, which is actually very interesting because we're doing a little research on this topic. In the past 10 years, all the mass shootings that have happened within the United States, 49% of them were perpetrated by white males. And in the last 35 years, 58% have were perpetrated by white males. And in the past 35 years, there were a total of 95 mass shootings in the United States, which and mass shooting has been defined here as um, a shooting that happens in a public place, as well as a shooting that kills four or more people as well. Moving on to the final question that I have here was just to kind of see or gauge a little bit on the effects on society as a whole and just people's general safety and well-being. So I asked the question on a scale of 1 to 5 how safe they felt walking alone at night, just in like a general like home or just in a general neighborhood. 5 being extremely safe and 1 being not very safe. And as you can see here, nobody out of the entire sample chose very safe, while the majority chose not feeling not safe at all. So, and that was directly related to the portrayal on social media. So that's really interesting and a little disturbing to see how unsafe people feel, and maybe that's why most people want to get a gun or think that they need one just to protect themselves in certain situations like that. All in all, we have that two of the hypotheses that I said earlier were proved, and those two were that the increasing portrayal of gun violence on social media is making the general population more likely to buy a gun, um, and the portrayal of gun violence on social media is skewing the general population's perception of the racial makeup of shooters, as I spoke about just a second ago. The one that was disproved was that the portrayal of gun violence on social media is weakening the argument for gun control, because although people are going out and buying guns more after mass shootings to feel safe, they still would like to see some kind of gun control or increased gun control than we have here currently. Just talking a little bit about future study. So, what we've identified here today were just some general societal effects, but I think that there should definitely be some more study within the psychology and sociology fields to really understand why exactly people feel this way, why exactly, or what will make them feel safe besides owning a gun, or what we can do in the future to maybe eliminate guns totally, or just be able to progress as a society more than just relying on guns constantly. Because as we've seen here, most of the time, um, guns just aren't the answer. And along with that information earlier that I was, and the research that I was doing, of those 95 mass shootings that have happened in the past 35 years, around 75% of the guns used in those mass shootings were obtained legally. So people seem to be getting the broader um, effects of this, or the broader meanings, that maybe guns are bad, but they're not making their personal decisions to get rid of guns or not go and buy them themselves. So that's where we really need to do some more research and figure out where to go in the future, to figure out, just so we can be a little bit better as a society. Again, sorry that I didn't show myself, or that I'm talking a little funny. My tonsils are super swollen right now. So thank you for your time.